What is up, YouTube? I have another tier list video for you guys. So today we're going to be looking at a lot of the decks that are, this is post-Worlds, 5 days before Foundations come out. So I will try to come out with another tier list when Foundations comes out, but it's going to be like a week or so until the meta kind of works itself out. So let's just get through these decks and kind of just talk about how the meta looks right now, what I think is best to climb, what I've been using. So yeah, let's start it out. All right, so Domain has kind of fallen off a little bit. You probably noticed it. It's not being played very much. It's still fairly good, but it's definitely it's definitely not as strong as it used to be. I think it's been a bit power corrupt. The meta is a little too fast for Domain to just sit there and ramp. Things might change with Foundations coming out for sure. Like Llanowar Elves is coming to Standard, so that kind of like, speeds up the game on the side of ramp decks quite a bit if they're able to, do a turn 3 play on turn 2. That's pretty strong if they can ramp again on turn 2. But for now, I think Domain sits around, B tier, maybe bottom B tier, I'd say. You can just still play it. You can probably still get some wins, and you'll probably go positive, but it's not something that I would use to climb. Just is not, you're not going to find yourself getting huge win rates with it, and I've just personally not been a fan. Next deck we got is Mono White Control. So Mono White Control, we talked about it before. This could be Boros. It could be splashing for red. You have like the red splashes with Imodane. You have the blue splashes with Jace, and I've seen Orzhov splash with Kaya as the top end as a kind of win condition. Most recently, I played the red splash, and it did pretty well. I'm tempted to almost put this in A tier, but I think top of B tier is probably where I'm going to put it. I've had pretty good success with it. I don't know if the stats are there for it, so I'm pretty hesitant to put it in A tier, but I've done pretty well with it. It's good against aggro. It has a fair matchup into aggro, good matchup into mid range, and then you just kind of, sometimes you're just losing in like, it does like kind of hard lose to a lot of control matchups. It's definitely your hardest matchup. I mean, I will say I've beaten Domain with it, but if they're running Jace and they're just stalling out the game, it can be really tough. You do kind of have to push the game. It's weird. It's a weird deck. Sometimes it just depends on how much removal, enchantment removal they draw. It can be kind of 50-50 sometimes, but overall, I've liked the deck. Next deck we got here is the Oculus Djinn Tempo deck. I'm gonna still put this in A tier. Still really strong. People, less rest in pieces, more ghost vacuums. You can, the only issue with this deck is that it runs so much off the graveyard, and there's pretty good graveyard hate. Ghost Vacuum has turned out to be really good. Like, I think most decks just want to run Ghost Vacuum. It's, the card sides in to any deck. It's only 1 mana. Has a really strong effect for 6 mana, and it kind of does everything you need to do as far as the graveyard goes, even though you're just removing 1 card. If you're in white, you probably still run Rest in Peace, but other than that, you're running Ghost Vacuum. Like, even I would absolutely rather run Ghost Vacuum than Leyline the Void in 95% of the situations. I've said this on my stream, because like the upside of Leyline the Void is you draw it on 1, or you draw on your opening hand and you play it, and if they remove it or even bounce it, then you have to play it for 4, right? And you can get all those cards in the graveyard on the turn that you have. So like for instance, against Azorius Oculus, they bounce it on whatever turn, and then they get a full turn at the end step of your turn, right? They get a full turn to fill up their graveyard as much as possible, and then they can play off whatever cards they have in their graveyard. And you have to spend your entire turn playing the Leyline of the Void back down, and it's really slows you down. Whereas, like, if they bounce Ghost Vacuum, you know what? It costs 1 mana. They replay it. They deal with whatever you've put on the board in that turn, and they're kind of good. They don't have to spend an entire turn replaying it. And if you don't draw it on turn 0, your Leyline of the Void, then Ghost Vacuum's just better. Ghost Vacuum costs 1 mana, and you can, you can play it on turn 2, and it still does pretty much what it did on turn 1. So, yeah. Other than Ghost Vacuum, this deck's really, really good. But because of Ghost Vacuum, I'm putting it in A tier. Next deck we got is Gruul Prowess. This is going to us. Aggro has been absolutely insane in these patches. We'll see what happens with Foundations. There's a number of kind of anti-aggro cards that are coming out, especially in white. There's one that's a 1-mana enchantment that gives everything comes in, every creature comes in tapped. So that could be interesting. There's another like white wall that gives you hexproof. So that will be interesting. But right now, aggro is king. Like I've really enjoyed playing aggro this patch. I don't even love playing aggro, but it's so strong. It feels like it's the best way to climb. I haven't played much of the Gruul Prowess deck only because I don't have the lands on Arena, but I played a lot of mono red and had great success with it. So let's keep going. Next deck we're gonna talk about is the Boros Auras. Straight to A tier with this. Again, it's another aggro deck. I think this deck is a little bit weaker to removal than the other decks, and that's why I put it in A tier. It beats the other aggro decks, so it's still very, very strong. But against something like Golgari, Dimir, and whatnot, like you need to have enough creatures to kind of overwhelm their removal sometimes. So when you're running so few creatures, you can be really weak to these decks that are running like 15 pieces of removal in their main deck. So you gotta watch out for that. And then we talked about it, but I am gonna put mono red at S tier. I'm even gonna I'm gonna put it above this. I really like this deck. This is the deck, and you'll see all these decks will be below in the description. I'll give a link, but I've been running the one from Worlds, and it's gone really, really well. It's very consistent. It's good against even the Prowess version. You can side in torches. You can side in shock that you already are main decking, but you can run more of those. And there is some advantages against the Prowess. Like you'll never have a tapped land, right? And sometimes Prowess has that tapped land, and it does impact them. Like I find that the land is actually very hurtful to them. In most cases, the man land is very good in Prowess, but again against mono red, it kind of they can never just take their turn and turn that on. The game just goes incredibly fast, and usually the mono red version is able to kind of eke out those wins. So I prefer this not only because I don't have the lands for the Gruul one, but I do think it is like the better version, only by marginally, but slightly better. Next deck I'm going to talk about that I've played a lot of is Dimir Demons. You could even say Golgari Demons, but Dimir Demons, I think this is still like A tier. I really do like this deck a lot. You run a ton of removal. I've enjoyed it. It's not been my most winning deck for sure. It's a hard deck to play. And if, I felt like I needed to put this in A tier because I played so much of it. I've really enjoyed playing it. I do think the deck's really powerful. You have this combo of just playing Doomsday Excruciator with a Jace or Restless Reef swinging in, so you can win by like turn 7 or even turn 6 if you have the Jace on the board already. It's a very, very strong deck. You've got this Unholy Annex is a crazy, crazy good card. the Unholy Annex kind of carries the deck a lot of the time, but you're putting so many different threats, so much removal, so much value with the Unholy Annex. You play it on a turn that they are tapped out, and then you draw and it's already replaced itself. Or you know, even if they do have something, let's say they are holding up mana and it's turn 5, you can play it for the other side and you made a 6/6. So now they have to deal with a flying 6/6 or deal with your Unholy Annex, and it kind of puts them between a rock and a hard place. It's definitely a very good deck. Where I found it to be it can be a little weak in that if you just don't draw your Unholy Annexes, you can kind of run out of steam. Or, you know, you can kind of just get run over by aggro in some games. So a lot of games in game 1, you're going to get run over by aggro, but, you know, games 2 and 3 become real games, but then you only have to lose one game, right? And so they just have to get like luckier than you on one game, and you're kind of SOL. So I've really liked the deck. I don't know if it's the best deck to play right now, but I've enjoyed it. Yeah. So let's go on to Jeskai Convoke, Boros Convoke. I mean, I've only seen really Jeskai Convoke on the ladder. I'm sure people are running Boros Convoke as well. I'd honestly put this around B tier. I might even put it over Domain, but it's pretty strong. It's very good against some of these. So like Dimir Demons, it kind of destroys Dimir Demons because they don't really run board clears. So there's people are running a ton of single target removal. And because of that, I think Convoke has a little bit of breathing room in the fact that like people are just not running those board clears. Of course, there's many decks where it just loses to there, but you know, every time I've played this against on ladder, I'm 70% of the time I'm losing to it. Like I either just don't draw the board clear necessary. I don't draw, whatever it is. I don't get to really play the game before I'm just dead to it. It's an interesting deck. It's kind of they have hands that are absolutely disgusting, and they play out like a Knight Errant Arrows on like 3, and you're just like, okay, well, I'm dead in the water, or even on like, so it's definitely a scary deck. But then they also have those hands where they, it's kind of slower. They don't really do all that much. And you can kind of get to the point of the game where you start kind of turning the corner and beating them up. So, I think it's a deck that kind of relies on the meta again. This deck, there is plenty of options to beat them. If you're in white, Beza is very good against them. Temporary Lockdown is very good against them. Sunfall, etc. But like, for right now, and even in black, there's like Choking Miasma and Malicious Eclipse that can, really like keep you in the game. But for the most part, they're, when people are running a lot of single target because there's so much aggro around it, I think Convoke really has a chance to shine. I'd even put it over Domain. Like it's not a weak deck. It is not a weak deck. Next deck we're going to talk about is Dimir Midrange. So Dimir Midrange has really taken a lot of it's gained a lot of power in Duskmourn. I think it took a second for people to get a solidified list, but once people realized how strong Curiosity was, it's become an absolute annoyance. For those who don't know, Curiosity is the 4-mana 4/3 with flash that every time you hit an opponent with a creature, you draw a card. So you can draw obscene amount of cards. Curiosity is so hard to deal with. It has flash, so you can pretty much always get it through. If you hold up removal for it, they just don't play it until your turn, and now you've wasted your entire turn. It does not feel great. It's a really, really strong card. Dimir Midrange, because of it, has shot up. Also, Kaido. Kaido is really, really good. Again, just really hard to deal with. These two cards, Curiosity and Kaido, they don't get destroyed by removal because Kaido you can't get with removal. I think the only thing that really destroys Kaido is Shieldred's Edict. but because of its hexproof, it's really, really hard to deal with Kaido. And Curiosity, even if you kill it, you need to kill it again, or you need to like exile it or something to stop their draw. So it's really, really strong deck. The only thing I think decks that can beat it are probably like, again, the aggro decks. I think the aggro decks kind of get under it. Don't let them develop that board. Don't let them get those swings in. But I'm telling you, as someone who's played a lot of mono red, this deck has beat me on mono red many times. I mean, Curiosity is, yes, it's not exactly what you'd want to draw. It's 4 mana, but when they get to the 4 mana and they trade with you on Curiosity, you know, they flash it out and block something with it. You might, you know, be winning that trade, but it still doesn't. It feels like you didn't win. They still get to draw. They still get to, you know, look deeper in their deck for their removal. And it just doesn't, nothing feels great. I'm going to be honest. Curiosity is a really, really strong card. Not a fan. Even Kaido, like, Kaido is supposed to be this aggressive planeswalker, right? But then he -2s and stuns one of your units, and now you have a unit that's not useful for 3 turns. What are you going to do with that? Next deck we're going to look at is Golgari Midrange. So Golgari Midrange, I have not been a fan of. I think some other lists, this might be a hot take, but I don't think it's very good. I think it's too slow. There's too much value. I just don't think it really makes all that much sense in the current meta. I'm going to put it C tier. I really don't like this deck. If you want to climb, it doesn't beat the aggro decks. You have a lot of wasted cards in the aggro decks that you just don't want to play against. I don't even think it's very good against Dimir either. Like you know, your Mosswood Dread Knight gets kind of countered by Fairy Mastermind. Again, you can the only benefits that you have are you have like Tranquil Throwback and Terror Sunder, which are good against Curiosity. But even then, it's really hard. As long as they kind of play around like Tranquil Throwback, then you're relying on Terror Sunders. They still get like that draw, that turn of draw, and the draw can be obscene. Like if they, you know, if you hold up mana, if you know, on turn 4 you play your thing, and then they hold up their mana and they play their Curiosity and they draw, you know, 2 or 3 cards with Curiosity. The game's kind of over from there. They just drew a bunch of free cards, and you're just gonna get absolutely like kind of wiped. Like they're gonna put their Kaido down. You're not gonna have a way to deal with it. It's a pain. I don't like Golgari at all right now. I don't think it's even, you know, even against a mono white, they have a lot of exile-based removal. You just don't really have anything that, I just feel like it doesn't have any great matchups, and it does a very strong thing and has a lot of value. You know, they've got the Mosswood Dread Knight, they've got the Unholy Annex, but they don't, you know, like the amount of times that you're actually able to use that value is very, very small. Very, very small. Last deck we're going to talk about is the Dimir Prowess deck. I'm going to put this in C tier. I don't actually know. This is one of the decks I was like kind of thinking about. I've seen it a lot on ladder. Sorry, let me take a sip of water. I've seen it a lot on ladder, and like not a lot, but like, you know, it's been a deck I've played against a number of times. Sometimes I win against it, sometimes I lose against it. It really depends on what deck you're playing. Whenever I'm playing like the Dimir Demons list, I feel like it's a really good deck, and then whenever I'm playing like anything else, it doesn't feel that great for them. It punishes decks that have expensive costs to them, but you know, when you're just bouncing things that you know, that have haste or are just like 1 or 2 mana, then it doesn't really feel that great. You can kind of delay the game, yeah, and you can kind of slow it down. I even, you know, maybe I'd even put it here or even bottom of here. I don't know. It's not my favorite deck. I've seen it quite a bit. It's okay. I wouldn't necessarily play it on ladder. I could even go B or A. I'm really unsure about this deck. This one is maybe the least sure of all of them. But because I don't have that data, I'm just going to put it into C tier. And that is the tier list for now. I think it's a very interesting meta that we're in. I'm excited for Foundations and seeing what those cards do, because I do think that a lot of the cards in Foundations are, slightly tamer or on the weaker side. These cards are going to be in Standard for 5 years, so I think they don't want to release ridiculous cards, but there's definitely some that are going to be kind of staples, like Llanowar Elves. While it doesn't, create a whole new deck archetype, I don't think it will kind of enhance a lot of decks and a lot of these cards that maybe would not have seen play otherwise, but because you're able to play the Llanowar Elves, you're able to have these, insane hands where you kind of just go off. That's what it seems like. It seems like there's every deck on this list has those absolutely insane hands where you just win, and otherwise they kind of have either like a grindy kind of game where they take you down. But that is the list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Obviously, follow me on Twitch. Follow me on like and subscribe this video if you like this content. The last tier list did pretty well, so I think people do enjoy this. I will absolutely keep doing this. We'll have one coming out after Foundations, once the meta kind of dust settles, and I can give you a confident tier list for that. And yeah, enjoy. I hope you get some LP, and I'll see you in the next video.